Alright guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today. For this one we are doing another little out and about video. So I'm still in Berlin, we are in Wedding in the kind of northwestern part of the centre. We are on Antwerpenstraße and we are going to have a little look at Vagabund Brauerei. So yeah, we'll do as we always do. We'll go in, we'll have a little look at the bar, we'll try some of the beers, and if they've got any food, we'll have a taste of that as well. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Always nice to do out and about videos, and I'm enjoying myself here in Berlin. So let's do this. Alright guys, well this is the outside of it here, Vagabund Brauerei. So yeah, as I said a minute ago, we are on Antwerpenstraße in Wedding in the northwest central part of Berlin, and I have to say I really like this street, like a typical West Berlin street. This is very, very nice. It's just hit 6 o'clock, so the church stopped bonging a minute ago, but now it's going to start again, I guess. But really pretty church, I have to say. As we say, we're hitting 6, that is the best number. But yeah, as you can see, here is the nice Vagabund Brauerei window, the Vagabund Brauerei symbol. And there's the door. So let's go in and have a little look. So this is a really nice bar. I've already been in and asked if it was okay to film. They take card. This is the great thing. In Germany, some places don't take card and it's very annoying. So yeah, there we go. But yeah, when you come in, this place is really, really nice. You've got some of the barrels there. Lots of different boards and things. Some old chests up there. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Very nice kind of chill place here. You've got the bar, our beers are getting poured, and yeah, really nice. Really like this place. It's very, very cool. So Jason and Mika are just chilling over there. We'll wave hello to them, and our beers are just coming. So let's do this, guys. We're going to taste all 6 of the beers here, since we're hardcore. But yeah, good stuff. Let's do this. Alright guys, so yeah, this is the tap list here then at Brauerei Vagabund. So yeah, the first one, Binderstiff IPA, Hauptstadt Helles, Sessionable Healing, Session IPA, I like that name, Stahl LX, Stahl 60, at Franconian Ale, American Pale Ale, and we have also the Eyinger Altbayerische Dunkel. This is a beer I've had before, so yeah, a nice little tap list here, a good selection. Prices are pretty good as well. I mean, if we think about this, remember €1 is about 10 Swedish kroner. So if you take €4 as a mark, maybe you're talking about £3.50 sterling, about $4.50. Yeah, $4.50 American. So yeah, for a 0.3, that's pretty good. Remember, this is a very small craft beer place. So yeah, good prices. But you know, Germany is very cheap for beer. You can't complain about any of that. But yeah, this is your tap list at Brauerei Vagabund in very early April 2022. Right guys, so first beer tasting then here at Vagabund Brauerei in Wedding in Berlin. So the first beer we're going to have a little look at is called Hauptstadt Helles. It comes in at 4.9% ABV, a style that I very much enjoy. So when this beer poured, about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would have said perfect white head. You've got a really nice kind of pale golden straw colour to this one. As you can see, this beer is unfiltered. Actually has a fair little bit of carbonation visible to it. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up in this light, but it does have a nice kind of steady stream of bubbles going up toward the bottom of the head. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect colour-wise and appearance-wise from a Helles beer, it's exactly what I would expect. Now remember, there are 2 types of Helles. You have the Dortmunder Helles, which is a more kind of hoppy style of beer. You have the Münchner Helles, which is a more kind of bready side of things, and you can also compare this to a Czech Svetli. Okay, so yeah, we'll need to see what this one is like exactly, because some of the Helles beers I've had in Berlin have been more Dortmundy, some of them have been a little bit more Munich, so we'll see what this one's going to do. But yeah, it looks a little bit more like a Munich Helles, to be honest with you, because of that little haze that it has. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma and see what we get. I'm going to say straight away Munich Helles, Münchner Helles. So you get a really nice kind of bread crusty backbone to it, a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing. That typical German bready base, that soft white bready sort of thing, absolutely. It does have a wee degree of sweetness to it as well. You get a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity note, but I would say that's quite minimal. It's crackery, soft white bread, a little bit of bread crust. Everything you would want from a Helles. Yeah, I like that. I love the Helles style. I think it's quite underrated. I mean, everyone goes wild about IPAs, pale ales and things like that these days, but to go back to a nice German Helles lager or a Czech Svetli, it's always nice. It is always nice. On the hoppy side of things then, it's got a little bit of a smooth earthiness to it, just a little touch I would say. You've got a nice bright floral aromaticity, but again it's quite smooth, bit of grassy note to it, wee bit of zestiness, but again it's got this really smooth character to it that you would always expect of German noble hops. So gives you everything you would want from this style of beer, to be honest with you, on the hoppy side of things. Fruity side of it, it's got a wee bit of a nice... it's got a little bit of a nice kind of like slightly sultana type note. You get a wee bit of an oily pear, a kind of... You do get a little bit of gooseberry out of this one, and you get some of those brighter grassy esters too. But yeah, in terms of aroma, you know, this gives you everything you want from the style. Whenever I try these beers, I want them to be nice and authentic. This one gives you that. But aroma-wise, it's a Münchner Helles, a Munich Helles. So let's see. This is the Hauptstadt Helles, capital Helles beer. To translate the name, it was 4.9% ABV. Slange, skull, cheers, prost. First beer here at Vagabund. Solid. First impression is it's quite wet and quite clean, but at the same time really smooth. And again, it gives you everything you would want from the style, and it's one of these beers where what you pick up in the aroma matches the flavour quite well. So middle, like base of your palate, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, soft white bread on top of that. It gets a little bit more crisp and dry the further into the aftertaste you go. I actually get a little teeny bit of kind of acidity out of this one. It does have just a little bit of acidity there in the middle of the palate, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, crackery base, soft white bread, definitely a wee bit of a more grainy bread crust as well. But then in the centre of the palate, you've got a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. So there's a little bit of sweetness to this beer. Sometimes you get that with Helles beers, sometimes you don't. But this is absolutely a Munich Helles, Münchner Helles. Yeah, this is nice. From the malty side of things, I think this is really good. Hoppy side of the beer, a little bit earthy for sure, but again very smooth. As you come further forward, it's a little bit herbal. As you reach the front corners of the palate, it's a little bit sort of floral and things, but round the front curve of the palate, nice and light and grassy, but also just a wee bit smooth. Yeah, it's really nice. Base of the front third of your palate, a little bit soft and bready again. You get a wee bit of an oily, fruity kind of thing on top of it, and it's quite, like I said, in the aroma too. So wee bit of a sultana sort of thing, you know, dried white green grapes. But again, it's a very dried fruit note. There's a wee bit of like apricot and dry pear in there, and as you reach like the front tip of the tongue, it's a wee bit kind of, you know, grassy and zesty. But very smooth beer, this one. It is really, really nice actually. I've tried quite a few Helles beers on this trip to Berlin, and I have to say I've quite enjoyed this one. This is actually one of them kind of, it's got a little bit more of a sweetness to the white bread than some of the other ones we've had recently, but it's good. Mouthfeel wise, to round off then, top end of light bodied, smooth carbonation. Does give you a wee bit of crispness in fairness too though. IBUs, that's like a standard 15-20, that's normal for the style. The malt base, nice and smooth, wee bit of sweetness as I said, then you've just got a wee bit of a slightly oily character to the fruitiness in this beer. But that's a solid Helles beer, I like that, that's what you want authenticity from them. So yeah, this is the Hauptstadt Helles, 4.9% ABV, our first beer of 6 that we're going to try apparently from Jason's sitting laughing, we're trying 6 beers. Yeah, so our first of 6 beers here at Vagabund Brauerei in Wedding in Berlin. Catch you guys on the next one. Right guys, so yeah, you can see they have their own merch and stuff as well, a hoodie, t-shirt, and you can also get your kids and baby t-shirts here as well. So yeah, for such a small brewery, quite cool that they have their own merchandise and things like this. So yeah, also happy hour, Monday to Friday, 5 to 7, 50% off. You can't go wrong, there you are. Right guys, time for our second tasting then. So the next beer that we're looking at is called Stahl LX. It comes in at 6.3% ABV and it's a Franconian ale. Now this is a style that I haven't reviewed so much on the channel. Franconia, or Franken as it's known in German. It's the northern region in Bavaria where Bamberg is. Anyone who's into beer should know Bamberg as a city. But yeah, the Franconian ale, from memory, is kind of like a Märzen in its flavour profile, but obviously it's a little bit thicker in things because it's an ale rather than a lager. But anyway, Michael behind the bar, who's been giving me some really nice information about the brewery and things like that, was telling me about this beer. So this one, the Stahl LX, it's named after one of their customers who's kind of involved in the brewery a little bit now. He's invested in it. It was brewed for his 60th birthday. He is a fan of this style of beer. So yeah, his name is Jeremy Stahl. LX is the Roman numeral for 60. It was brewed for his 60th birthday. That is the basic story behind this one. I think that's everything I need to say about the beer before we can actually taste the thing. So there we go. But yeah, anyway. So, as you can see with this one, it's poured with a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of like fawn. Yeah, like fawn, very light beigey coloured head. I'm not sure how well you're going to see that, but it's got, again, this kind of natural haze to it, which I really like, but definitely a kind of very rich copper amber colour. It's kind of similar to like a West Coast double IPA, something like this in terms of its colour. So remember, colour your beer depends on the type of malts that you use, length of your wort boil, any adjuncts you put in, barrel aging and so on, but obviously it's type of malts and type of malts and wort boil that are going to affect this one. So yeah, nice kind of coppery, ambery colour for sure, and a nice natural haze to it. So obviously unfiltered. Don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance. You do get a steady stream of carbonation on it again, but yeah, looks good. So Aromatime, let's look at this. Yeah, so this is really interesting because it's quite grainy, the bread crust side of this beer. It has a really bread crusty backbone, but it's a lot more grainy than some of the other ones that I've come across. So yeah, you have a little bit of this sort of wholemeal brown bready, I wouldn't say toasty, but quite grainy bread crust. There's a sweet sort of brown bready note on top of this. I wouldn't go as far as saying like German rye bread, you know, that's what you'd expect of like a Dunkel or a Doppelbock, something like that. But yeah, nice kind of grainy wholemeal bready sort of thing. On top of that, there's definitely an element of sweet caramel to it. And I'm not going to go as far as toasty. It's not really toasty. It is, again, the whole vibe of this beer is kind of grainy rather than anything else. So there's a wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. Not sure how good a descriptor that is for Germans, right enough. I can't remember if you can get McVitie's digestives here, but it's got a bit of that there. It's got a kind of wholemeal grainy brown bread base to it, and there's maybe, you know, you do get a little bit of woodiness out of this. It has got a little bit of that woody vibe, not nutty, definitely like a dry woody, you know, and maybe a wee bit of cracker, something like that. So aroma wise, from the malty side of things, this is quite interesting. Hoppy side of the beer, it's, again, you've got that smooth German noble character coming out of this one, so you get a wee bit of the earthiness in there, which actually is quite good when you think about the malty base of the beer. A little bit herbal. You get a wee bit of spiciness from the floral note in this one, and the grassy character is actually quite light and zesty. Could this be Zafir? Zafir hops? I'll tell you why I'm in it, and I think that. It just has that wee bit of spiciness to it on the green component, but on the fruity side of things, when you go into that, it's got like a wee bit of an orangey note to it, and Zafir, German Zafir hop, just gives you a wee bit of orange, and I really think there's a little bit of that in this one. Mandarina Bavaria, of course, is another option for that, but it's not quite as oily for that, to be honest with you. Mandarina Bavaria is like 8% alpha acid, Zafir is like a 3.5 alpha acid hop, so yeah, this is interesting. So the fruity side of this beer, as I've said, it's quite oily and quite orangey in a sense, but yeah, I'm just curious to see what this is going to be like. I can't remember the last time, if ever, I've reviewed a beer that's been called just Frankische Ale or Franconian Ale. So yeah, let's just taste this and see how we go. So yeah, the Stahl LX or Stahl Sechsen, as you would say in German. Let's look at this. Yeah, that's nice. Solid beer. First impression, sweet brown bread. A wee bit more grainy into the aftertaste, but you've still got that sweetness. I think the description we gave at the start, like a Märzen, but more bready and grainy and things, that suits it really well. It's nice. It really is nice, this. Let's break it down then. Base of the middle of your palate, there's a wee bit of woodiness there. I do find this beer gets a bit woody. Bread crust on top, smooth, kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing on top of that. I think there's like a little circle in the middle of your palate where it's like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. But if you go to the dead centre of your palate, a wee bit more oily and caramelly. But then as you move out, it does get a wee bit more biscuity. But with an ale, you're always going to get these kind of slightly thicker flavours out of it. So this one, yeah, it does feel really thick. If I was given this blind, I have to admit, I wouldn't think this was German. I don't think I would think this is German. I would probably think that this is like an English amber ale or something. It's not a million miles away from that. But recently on the channel we tried the Adam beer, which is a German. It's from Dortmund, and it tastes like a Scotch ale. It tastes like a Scotch ale. So you can get really random oddities like this in German beer. But yeah, it tastes a little bit like a kind of an English beer of some description. But as we say, it's an ale. Lagers are more common in Germany. But yeah, this is pretty cool. It is nice. I like this beer for sure. Yeah, it gets a little bit more woody into the further into the aftertaste that you go. And again, some of the kind of brown bready graininess comes out. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the malty side of things. Hoppy side of the beer, a little bit earthy. As you come further forward along the sides of your palate, it's got a wee bit herbal character, a little bit floral, round the front curve of the palate, a little bit of grassiness, a wee bit of zestiness. It works, it's really nice. Yeah, fruity side of the beer, front third of your palate, base, brown bread, little bit grainy. And again, I think Zafir hop with this, because Zafir always gives you this little bit of orange, and you're getting that. The front third of your palate with this beer, it's got a wee bit of an oily pear, a wee bit of an oily orange. I think that's what we're getting out of this one. Would be really curious to know that about it. Either Zafir or a Push, Mandarin of Bavaria. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer. Big brown bread, little bit of orange, nice kind of smooth hoppy notes. Mouthfeel wise, it's mouthfeel wise, mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, a bit oily, hoppy bitterness. It's difficult with this because it has that grainy sort of thing. So the graininess, of course, you get this kind of conflation between graininess and grainy dryness and hoppy bitterness. But if you combine that, it's about like 30 IBU. It's similar to that. But the malt base, bready, bit sweet, and then you've got that nice big oily fruit. That's an interesting beer, after 3,200 odd reviews, when you get stuff like this that changes that you have to think about a wee bit. It's always nice. Jason's laughing at the number of beers that I'm reviewing as well. But yeah, things that you do like this is pretty cool. I've enjoyed this one, I have to say. So yeah, if they do have a Frankische ale, Franconian ale on tap, try it, go for it. It's not a style you're going to find every day. And see, I've been to Franconia, even down there, you're not going to find this that often. So yeah, have a go for it. This one was the Stahl LX, Stahl 60, Sechsen, however you want to... no, what would it be? Zexig, yeah. Sechsen is 16, Zexig is 60. So yeah, a nice beer, 6.3% ABV, good stuff. I like this one. This is I get a feeling this is going to be the most interesting beer of the evening. I think this will be, but let's leave it at that. Alright guys, so as with any good German brewery, they've got a nice selection of bottles in the fridge for you to take away. So yeah, Michael is telling me that the prices are €2.50 to take away, €3.90 to drink in. So €2.50 is about £2 sterling, $3 American, €3.90 is about £3 sterling, maybe $4.50, something like that. But yeah, good little mix of things here, so that you can see Sessionable Healing, the Session IPA, the Binderstiff IPA, Down here they have the Hellas, the My Saddle, My Pony, and then down here they've got some beers that we are actually going to try. So Three's a Party, the Triple, Call It a Day, which is an English bitter, and of course a few other little things here. Clouds, this looks quite interesting. That is a Session IPA as well. So Eyinger, Brauweiss, and then down here we have Pirazer Brewery, which I haven't heard of before. So yeah, alcohol-free beers apparently. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, nice little selection in the fridge here, and good prices as you always get. So yeah, you can come and take away some of the stuff. Right guys, so time for our third tasting then at Vagabund. This next beer was very kindly brought out of the fridge for me by Michael. So this is really unusual for Germany. This one is called Call It a Day. It comes in at 4.9% ABV, and this is an ESB, extra special bitter, also known I guess generically as an English bitter. When are you ever going to find an English bitter brewed in Germany? This is really random. So yeah, Michael took a little bit of time to pour this for me, and yeah, it does really look like a Dunkel beer, this one. So when it poured, it came out with about a half finger of a frothy kind of fawn coloured head. As you can see, it really has this lovely dark kind of chestnutty colour to it, which I think is really interesting. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head, but this beer is actually quite a bit clearer than the other ones that we've looked at so far. Yeah, really kind of crystal clear beer, this one. Yeah, you can get English bitters, they can be a little bit brighter and more mahogany than this. This one I think is a little bit more chestnutty. I think it's fair to describe this beer as being a little bit more chestnutty. Yeah, in honesty guys, the English bitter, the ESB, is a style that I don't enjoy that much normally. I don't like the kind of... I've never been a great fan of English hops in non-black beers, if that makes sense. For me, when it comes to English beer, I like milds, I like porters, I like stouts. The English bitter was a style that I never really got that into. So that makes me even more curious about this one. So yeah, in terms of appearance, it's kind of what we'd expect, but let's have a look at the aroma and see how we go. Yeah, see, straight away, you can smell with this one, you get that, the graininess that you get from an English bitter comes out right away. So, you know, bread crusty, yeah, really nice bread crusty note, quite woody. I always find English bitters like really woody. Yeah, really bread crusty, woody backbone. You do get an element of nuttiness coming out of this one. The brown bready notes are like really wholemealy. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying rye bready, but it's got a similar dryness to rye bread. But like I say, really dry woody character. For me, it's like a slightly spicy wood almost. But I mean, for me, the characteristic of an English bitter is that really grainy, just grainy bready character, and you get that in abundance from this beer, and the really dry woody backbone to it. There's a wee bit of like a McVitie's digestive biscuit on top, but of course nowhere near what you're going to get from like a Dunkel, a German Dunkel. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a slightly stronger oily brown sugar as well. So yeah, a little bit of a more oily brown sugar, but toasty caramel as well, as I say, a wee bit grainy. It's interesting this. As I say, this is the very first time I've ever tried a German brewed English bitter. I don't think this is very common. I mean, I've met quite a few Germans who've complained about, oh, English beer, warm beer, I don't like it. I've encountered this quite a few times. But it's interesting. The best English bitter I've ever had was actually brewed by a Swedish brewery. I was talking to Michael about that a second ago. So this is curious. Hoppy side of things. Wee bit earthy, quite a nice bright floral note. I wouldn't be surprised if this is German hopped, because it has that bright floral note. The grassiness is a wee bit zesty as well. Usually English hops are a bit more earthy and herbal, whereas the German ones are brighter and grassier. And just slightly zesty. But yeah, fruity side of things, it's got a wee bit of like this sultana, dried white green grapey note. yeah, a little bit of sultana. I wouldn't go as far as apricot. It's more oily than that. So yeah, sultana, white green grapes, and a wee bit of pear. Yeah, I think that's fair. So yeah, interesting aroma. So this one is Call It a Day, 4.9% ABV, an ESB, extra special bitter. I would call it an English bitter from Vagabund. Yeah, this is one that Michael just pulled out of the fridge. So big ups to Michael for just randomly giving me this beer. Slange, skål, cheers, prost. That's decent actually. So apparently foreign brewed English bitters are better than English brewed English bitters. Anyway, it's got that typical dryness and graininess that you expect of the style, and this is one of the things that's always got me about the English bitter. It's the bitter. A lot of the bitterness comes from the malty side of things rather than the hops. We're so accustomed to like IPAs and stuff these days, we expect the bitterness from the hoppy side of things. But yeah, this is interesting. So for me, this is quite woody in its backbone. The woodiness has a bit of dryness, particularly towards the back of the palate. A bit drier towards the back, a bit smoother further forward. Remember, bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. It has a wee bit of bread crust, but that's quite light and crisp. You do get a bit of smooth brown bready note, but for me the dominating base flavour is woody. Maybe a teeny wee bit of like a nutty thing, but yeah, woody. Very, very woody beer, this one. But I think the further you go into the aftertaste, the bigger the breadiness gets and the more the graininess gets. That's when you get the wholemeal bready note out of this one. But in the centre of your palate, middle third of your tongue, there's a wee bit of a straight up sweet caramel in the dead centre of your palate. That's the booziness of the beer. As you move out from that, it's a bit more like McVitie's digestive biscuit, like it's kind of like that. Yeah, hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, a wee bit earthy. As you come further forward, it's a wee bit herbal. The more that I drink of this, I'm thinking it's English hops rather than German, so wouldn't be surprised. Front corners of the palate, wee bit floral, but the floral notes are quite wet, again a sign of English hops. But round the front curve of the tongue, lighter and grassy, and again wet, English hops. Bit curious about this one. I'd love to know what hop is in this. But yeah, front third of your palate, fruity side of things. Base, definitely brown bread. On top of that, yeah, you've got a quite wet, fruity character. So a wee bit of sultana. As you come further forward, a bit more oily and peary. The fruity side of things is quite similar to the aroma, to be honest with you. This is a beer that really, the aroma and the aroma that you get off it and the flavour that you get out of it matches up quite nicely. Yeah, it's an interesting English bitter, and as I say, foreign brewed English bitters seem to be better than the English brewed ones, to be honest. So that's a challenge for you guys watching. If you know an English bitter that's brewed really nicely, let me know. Yeah, so mouthfeel wise, what we say, I think this is mid-bodied. I think it's right in the middle of the spectrum. Smooth carbonation, a wee bit wet but still a wee bit oily at the same time. IBUs, it's IBU wise, it's a wee bit of a kind of 25 IBU note, but some of the graininess is coming out too. That's giving you a wee bit more bitterness. Sweet malt base, a little bit bready, and a wee bit of a kind of more oily, fruity note to it as well. Interesting beer. I could drink this. This is one of the beers that could convert me on English bitters. Like I say, style that I've not enjoyed all that much, but yeah, interesting for sure. So yeah, the Call It a Day English bitter, 4.9% ABV from Vagabund Brauerei in Weding in Berlin. There we go. So let's see what we're going to do next. Catch you guys in a second. Right guys, so beer tasting number 4 then. Oh man, this is why you can't take Australians anywhere. We love them though. We love them.
Up Scotland.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, our 4th beer. All right then. So the next beer, this one is called Sessionable Healing. So yeah, it comes in at 4.5% ABV. Session IPA, and Michael wanted me to name drop the prize that this one got. So it is the Meininger Craft Beer Festival Gold Medal 2021. So yeah, this is just a bottle that came out of the fridge, but we're going to drink this beer off the tap, of course. So yeah, as you can see when it poured, it's got a solid finger of a frothy, I would say kind of perfect white head there. In terms of the colour, it's a nice kind of rich, pale golden straw, I think that's fair to say. You can see if I put my fingers behind it, it's crystal clear. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, but to be honest, not a lot of carbonation visible in this one. In terms of what you'd expect from a session IPA, I think that's, nothing surprising, to be honest with you. It looks the part. So nothing else we need to say about the appearance of this beer. I think we can have a wee look at the aroma. So straight away, really citrusy, really zesty, really grassy. It's interesting for sure. As I said to you in other videos before, so there's a big thing about the difference between like a pale ale and a session IPA. So remember, pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs, barley wines, these beers are all related by their hop to malt ratio. So the pale ale and the IPA have different hop to malt ratios, but what they do with session IPAs is that they take the malt content down so that therefore the alcohol content of the beer is less, and they do maintain the hop to malt ratio that you would have normally with an IPA. That's the difference between a session IPA and a pale ale, right? So yeah, this is nice. You can smell how fresh this is. One of the things you can always get from a beer when it's extremely fresh is that sort of powdery thing from the hops. You can like smell the hop pellets coming out of this, and that's just a sign of how fresh this beer is. This is basically straight out the tank. So backbone of the beer, on the malty side of things, it's a little touch bread crusty, but a lot of soft kind of crisp white bread. The malt base is pretty straightforward, so yeah, a little bit crackery, a little bit of white bread. I get a teeny little bit of like a biscuity sort of sweetness, like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. That's quite interesting for sure. With session IPAs, you're always going to get like a little bit of bite and a little bit of zip to the malt base. But this is interesting for sure. Like crisp white bread, wee bit of bread crust, wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit. It's interesting. On the hoppy side of things, it's a wee bit earthy. You get a nice, quite bright, zippy floral aromaticity out of it. A lot of grassy zestiness, absolutely. Again, I'd be curious to know what hops are in this, but the grassy zestiness you get out of this is a little bit like Centennial, that big lemony zesty hop. The fruity side of things in this is really nice too. So for me, on the fruity side of things, this beer, it's really like lemony. There's a bit of like gooseberry, maybe a wee bit of like a very slight oily mango and a wee bit of a dry apricot underneath. Mango, wee bit of apricot, gooseberry, big lemony thing. I'm not going to say Nelson Sauvin, but Hallertau Blanc from Germany would be a good bet for this. Centennial from America. Yeah, I always like playing guess the hops with these beers, but this is interesting. This has certainly got my interest. But if we're talking about a session IPA, it's a big, zesty, grassy sort of thing. Absolutely. Curious about this. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma, but we are going to get stuck into this. This is the Sessionable Healing 4.5% ABV Session IPA. Slàinte, Skull, cheers, Prost. Yeah, right, first impression of this, really slick, oily, nice light beer. Not quite as bitter as I expected, but the oily zesty note in this is really, really nice. It is just a big zesty kind of grassy sort of thing, this one, but this is really easy to drink. And this differs from quite a few of the other German beers that I've had in recent times because it really is more oily and slick rather than having that bready backbone. So yeah, this is one that's piqued my interest. Yeah, it's almost a little bit like It almost has a little bit like an oily Pilsner mouthfeel to it in a sense. But yeah, it doesn't have that typical German breadiness to it. So this is a wee bit different. But let's break it down. Base of the beer, you get this little bit of crackery sort of thing. But on top of that, there's a lot of like an oily McVitie's digestive biscuit. Further you go into the aftertaste, you do get a little bit more of a light white bread out of it, but that's the interesting point. The bread takes a bit of time to come out, that crisp white bread. In the dead centre of the palate, it's a wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, but yeah, it's just the way that it's layered that's different. So yeah, Jacob's cream cracker, McVitie's digestive biscuit, and just a wee bit of bread that comes out in the aftertaste. Maybe one or two little teeny hints of woodiness. But yeah, a really interesting malt base for sure. Hoppy side of things. Yeah, back corners of the palate, there's a wee bit of earthiness, but not a lot. As you come further forward, it's a wee bit smoother. A little bit of a wet floral note on the front corners of the palate. Round the front curve of the tongue again, it's grassy, but it's a wet grassiness. It's not too zesty. So yeah, that's interesting. Quite, again, that's in keeping with what you get from this. I think you can taste the sort of powderiness of the hops from the pellets. So this is pretty damn fresh. Just the hops are so wet in this. So this is really pretty bloody fresh. Yeah, really wet green component to this one. Front third of your palate, fruity side of things. The base is a little bit crackery again. The fruity side of the beer, kind of what I was picking up in the aroma. So you get a wee bit of this. I do get like a little bit of like a gooseberry sort of thing. Lemony zesty notes towards the front kind of tip of the tongue. But yeah, gooseberry, wee teeny little bit of sultana. I mean, the further you go into the aftertaste, there's a little bit of that sultana, dried white, green grapey sort of thing. Yeah, this is really interesting. Yeah, gooseberry, sultana. Yeah, this is, for me, it just gets a little bit zesty and more lemony the further you go into the aftertaste. Interesting beer, absolutely. But quite different from the other German session IPAs and pale ales and stuff like that we've had. Mouthfeel wise, bottom end of mid-bodied, top end of light-bodied, slightly oily and slick, not so much carbonation. IBU, 25, 30 IBUs, malt base, biscuity and slick again, and a wee bit of an oily fruit. That's another really interesting beer. So yeah, this was the Sessionable Healing 4.5% ABV Session IPA. This is beer number 4, and I think it's going to be 7 that we're going to try now. The number keeps going up as we go. We'll see where we end up with this, but I hope you enjoy the video anyway. Catch you guys in a second. This one too, 24 hours in a day, 24 beers in a case. Coincidence? I think not. And lots of beer kegs sitting here, so yeah, that is pretty cool. One other thing, as you can see, musket firing. They've also got a projector for movie night, so yeah, really chilled out place this. Absolutely love it. Vagabund Brauerei in Wedding in Berlin. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 5 then here at Vagabund, and this one was a little bit unexpected. So Michael pulled this out of the fridge for us. This beer is called Mellow Clouds. It's a collaboration between Vagabund Brauerei and Untappd, who are also from Berlin. So yeah, it comes in 3.8% ABV. It's another session IPA. Yeah, this should be quite interesting. So yeah, my very first encounter with Untappd. So as you can see, this beer is poured a really nice kind of bright golden straw yellow colour, like a little bit like a mango juice. Yeah, about a half finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of. You know, the bubbles in this one are kind of medium sized. Yeah, lovely kind of. Yeah, lovely kind of. Yeah, lovely kind of hazy note to it as well. So yeah, a little bit of that kind of yeasty sediment coming out in the beer. For a session IPA, you kind of expect this. It looks a little bit more kind of New Englandy. If we look at the malt base in this one, it does contain wheat and oat. So this is definitely going to be more of a kind of New England session IPA rather than anything else. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect from a modern session IPA, not really surprised to be honest. So yeah, Aromatime. Again, this is one of these big, really zesty, kind of lemon limey leaning beers. Yeah, I like this. I do like it. So, where do we start with this? This is a wee bit different from the session IPA we had before. The session IPA we had before was a little bit more of a kind of West Coasty American one, but this is definitely more New England, absolutely. So, backbone of the beer, soft kind of bread crusty notes. On top of that, you get a little bit of a straight up kind of fresh white bread. You can smell a wee bit of the wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose, but you also get that smooth oaty note out of the beer too. And of course, because it's German, the trait of German beer is always that smooth breadiness. So it's kind of amplified a little bit, that soft white bready kind of thing. But yeah, there's definitely a wee bit of a kind of Werther's Original. Butter candy. Yeah, Werther's Original butter candy. Wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if this has got a little bit of Golden Promise malt in it, come to think of it. But yeah, the wheat has a wee bit of bitiness, the oats are giving you the smoothness. This is quite interesting. So we're trying two different types of session IPA in this wee session here at Vagabund. I like it. On the hoppy side of things then, a wee bit of earthiness, a nice little bit of a kind of bright, grassy sort of floral note. Yeah, the floral notes that you get with this are quite, again, very bright. I wonder if there's like a German base hop in this, and then it's got an American hop on top of it. Does it say what hops it has? No, it doesn't, yeah. Okay, but yeah, the hoppy side of this beer, yeah, nice and bright and floral and aromatic. A little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing. Wee bit of zestiness on the grassy side of things. Yeah, this is quite interesting. It's got a real crisp quality to it, this beer. On the fruity side of things, I'm thinking Idaho 7. It has a wee bit of a juicy mango note, a wee bit of a kind of light apricot-y kind of thing. Yeah. Soft mango, juicy apricot, a little bit of papaya almost, and there is a wee bit of a kind of lemon limey note to it as well. There's just something about this beer is telling me Idaho 7. But yeah, this is really nice. The fruity side of the beer overall is quite soft and juicy, and it mixes in with the whole kind of white bready, oaty, kind of creamy vibe that you would expect of a New England session IPA. I like this, I really do. Yeah. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. Yeah, let's taste this one then. So this is the Mellow Clouds, a collaboration between Untappd and Vagabund here, both from Berlin. So yeah, 3.8 session IPA. Let's go. You know, it's a really straightforward, really smooth, just easy drinking beer. Mika was saying to me, you know, how do you rate these beers? The main question for me is, would you drink it again? And the answer is yes. That's just really nice. I've had quite a few really light, sessionable IPAs and things recently, and this one's as good as any of those ones that you're going to come across. The standard of Swedish craft beer that I drink often is really high. This one is on par with those. Yeah, when it's Germany, of course, you wouldn't expect any less. So yeah, middle third of your palate, soft, kind of little touch of bread crust, a very light dash of it, I have to say. Soft white bread. You get a wee bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of your palate with this one, but not a lot. The wheaty notes you get out of this beer are quite smooth. In the middle of your palate, it's a bit more smooth and oaty and very slightly creamy. This one doesn't have a lot of sweetness to it. There's just a teeny little bit of that kind of golden promise, sort of biscuity note. But yeah, this beer for me is very straight up and bready. Bread crust, white bread, bit of wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess. It doesn't really have a big sweet element to it. On the hoppy side of the beer, a little bit of floral aromaticity. As you move further forward, a little bit herbal. Yeah, a wee bit earthy, I should say. A little bit herbal. Floral aromaticity, then round the front curve of the palate, it's a wee bit lighter and grassy. This beer, the more that you drink of it, the more of a kind of grassy zestiness comes out of it. But the green component for me is again quite wet. Yeah, this is nice though. I do like this. But the standard of beer we've had so far, and we're 5 tastings in now. Jason laughing again. Yeah, we're 5 tastings in now, and it's pretty good. And that's not just because we're consuming more booze, but there we go. Yeah, fruity side of the beer then. The base of that front third of your palate is a bit of a smooth kind of oaty sort of thing. On top of that, there's a wee bit of passion fruit at the back of the front third of your palate, a wee bit of a light mango. You do get some apricot in there, and a wee bit of a kind of papaya type sort of thing as you go toward the kind of front tip of the tongue. There's maybe just a wee touch of a more lemony, zesty note on the fruity side of the beer too. But it's a nice session IPA. You can't really ask for any more than that. On the mouthfeel, on the mouthfeel, I think it's bottom end of light bodied, smooth carbonation. It does have a wee bit of a creamy note to it, but because it's a low ABV one, I think, what was this, 3.8% ABV, it does have that little bit of crispness to it, so it's not quite as thick and creamy as you're going to get from a normal New England beer. But yeah, smooth malt base, bit of oily fruitiness, wee bit of zestiness and things too, just a wee bit of hoppy bitterness. I think this is a standard kind of 30 IBU beer, but it's nice. Yeah, so the Mellow Clouds, collaboration between Untappd and Vagabund Brauerei. Nice stuff. Kind of a random beer tasting actually. So I think we're up to we're going to have to do like 7 or 8 beers now, but we just keep getting handed more stuff. The beer's good. We're not going to complain. There we go. So we'll see how many more we're going to do. Catch you guys in a second. I like this. You're not beer, so stop trying to make everyone happy. That's a life motto for you guys. There you go. Right guys, so if memory serves me correctly, this is beer tasting number 6. We'll find out when we cut the video together. But yeah, this next beer I think is going to be really cool. So this one is simply called American Pale Ale, APA. It comes in at 5.2% ABV, and from what Michael tells me, this was the very first beer that these guys did that was on tap all the time. So yeah, I think at this point it's cool to show you the Vagabund Brauerei coaster. So this is what you'll get when you come into the Brewpub. But the story behind Vagabund Brauerei is that back in 2011, there were 3 American guys who were English teachers doing kind of jobs like that in Berlin. They started brewing together and they just gradually built up this brewery. About 3 years ago, they got a new premises which is a little bit further over to the east, and they started brewing a little bit more there. In this brew pub, they brew about 250 litres. They've got a 250 litre brewing system, but over there they are now brewing 45 hectolitres. So yeah, 4,500 litre batches, which is pretty impressive actually. So yeah, that's a little bit of a basic story of Vagabund Brauerei for you. But yeah, as I say, this is the very first beer that they had on tap all the time. And at that time, when they started back in 2011, there were no real American-style craft breweries here in Berlin, so this beer is actually one of the very first American-style pale ales that you would have found in Berlin. And I'm not sure, when I think about the other German breweries I've tried, it would have probably been one of the first American-style pale ales that you would have found in Germany. I've talked about this on the channel many a time. There are many American style breweries now, and it's just a really interesting time with the German beer scene, because you've got all these very well trained brewers now having a go at brewing American styles of beer. So yeah, if you get the chance to try some of the American style German brewed craft beers, you're going to have good fun. But yeah, like I said, this beer is simply called APA, American Pale Ale, 5.2% ABV. Let's take a look at it. So when it poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of ivory coloured head. It had a nice little bit of a kind of creamy colour to it. That has faded away because I've been sitting gassing and talking to you a little bit about how the brewery goes. But yeah, that's faded away to just be a nice kind of thin foamy layer. But ivory sort of cream is definitely a nice way to describe this one. So yeah, in terms of the colour of this beer, this is a really nice, dark, very coppery coloured one. It does have a little bit of a natural haze to it. You can see that if I put my fingers behind it. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on mainly the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining the EBC rating of the beer, but of course the length of the wort boil can affect it as well. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any adjuncts you put in, any barleys that you do will affect that too. With APAs you don't have to care about that though. But yeah, for me this is a more kind of West Coasty type pale ale for sure. This is one of the darker pale ales that you are going to come across. But yeah, not a lot of visible carbonation to it. It looks really nice. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the appearance of this one, but a lovely copper, rich amber colour. Let's have a wee look at the aroma and see what we get from this one. Yeah, this is definitely, it's a West Coast pale ale, absolutely, but it has that typical German malty breadiness. I keep going on about this in these videos. I absolutely love that German malty breadiness that you get out of these beers. So, backbone of the beer, a little bit of a nice bread crusty character. Yeah, a little bit of a nice kind of smooth bread crusty character. A wee bit of a white bread in there, some brown bread as well. Yeah, this is a very straight up beer in a lot of ways in terms of the aroma. Bread crust, brown bread, white bread, it absolutely works. Yeah, on top of that, straight up sweet caramel, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. Yeah, for me, this really is like a classic West Coast pale ale. The big oily caramel, the McVitie's digestive biscuit that's in there, it really is very, very nice. And then that big, smooth German, white, brown bready sort of thing. I really, really like how this beer goes about its business. Absolutely. Yeah, really, really nice. Maybe you get one or two tiny little bits of woodiness out of the aroma, but other than that, I don't think there's anything we need to say about the malty base in this beer. Yeah, on the hoppy side of things, this beer is really nice and big and floral and stuff. So at the back of the nose you do get a little bit of earthiness, but for me this has got a very deep floral aromaticity, so I think there's a lot of early edition hop in this.
Would be my first choice. I would never.
You do get a little touch of that kind of spicy floral aromaticity, very, very deep though, but round the front of the nose you do get a very zesty, grassy character out of this one. But aroma-wise, this is really, really nice. Very old school, West Coast APA, this one. Yeah, I think this is going to be good. Let's have a look at the taste of this one then and see how we go. So yeah, pardon me, APA, 5.2% ABV, the very first main beer from Vagabund Brauerei here in Weding in Berlin. Let's go, Slange Skull, cheers, potentially one of the first APAs ever in Germany, but let's go. Slange Skull, cheers, Prost.
Yeah, for 2 years I flew back in February, and my sister had a baby while I was there.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got 3 younger siblings.
That's really interesting. Now,
Every time you see parents,
the reason I say this beer is interesting, it definitely, for me, when it comes to the American Pale Ale, I love the caramelly, biscuity sort of thing, but this one has like a 50-50 balance between that German bready sort of thing and the sweet caramelly, biscuity note that you would expect of a West Coast Pale Ale. So yeah, it really is like that. It combines what I would expect of a German brewed beer and an American Pale Ale, so yeah, I like this, I do like this. The further you go into the aftertaste with it as well, it gets a bit more crackery and bready for sure. So yeah, the middle of your palate, lovely little bit of a smooth kind of crackery backbone to it. Jacob's cream cracker is absolutely the backbone of this beer. On top of that, a little bit of a kind of more grainy bread crust. Brown bread on top of that, a little bit of a kind of crisp brown bread note. Some white bread there as well. Yeah, I like this. On top of the white bready notes, nice oily brown sugar in the dead centre of your palate. Wee bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity note on top of that. A little bit just kind of biscuity for sure. But yeah, biscuity base, oily caramel on top, and then that nice kind of brown bready note. And the further you go into the aftertaste, a little bit crackery, very slightly woody. Like I say, big German malt base, bready base to it. Wee bit crackery, very slight woodiness to it as well. But yeah, it combines that big German breadiness with the more brown sugary American notes. Yeah, hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, a little bit earthy. As you move further forward, it's got a little bit of a kind of herbal kind of character, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, a little bit more floral and aromatic. Round the front curve of the palate, a little bit lighter and grassy. I wouldn't say zesty, it's more like a kind of wet grassy note that you get out of this one, but you also have a nice oily fruity character coming out of this one. So yeah, this is good. Let's focus on that fruity side of things. So yeah, base of the front third of your palate, smooth white bread on top of that, a little bit of a kind of oily, a little bit of an oily fruity note. Toward the back of that front third of your palate, wee bit of a grapefruity note. I wouldn't be surprised if this has got Cascade in it. There's just something distinctive about this beer that tells me Cascade. Wee bit of a more kind of, wee bit of a grapefruity note, a little bit of a kind of figgy sort of thing. And then as you come further forward, you just get a little bit of a brighter kind of red fruity note. Yeah, grapefruit fig, I think that's fair to say. I think this is just Cascade. I think this is just a straight up Cascade thing. Maybe this is modelled on like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, something like that. It strikes me as being a little bit similar. On the mouthfeel then, to round off this one, mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, a little bit of oiliness to it, really nice. IBUs, I think this is like 30 IBUs, something like that, maybe 40 at a push. Nice malty bready backbone, bit of sweet caramel to it, then a wee bit of an oily fruity note. I like how this goes together. An interesting beer, one of the first APAs in Berlin apparently. So yeah, 5.2% ABV, simply called American Pale Ale. This is going to be, I think, our third last one, but we keep getting handed stuff, so who knows. But yeah, the APA, enjoyed this one. So let's go on to the next one. Slides just now. So yeah, lots of philosophical quotes around this bar, guys. Happy yeast, happy life. That's the way to go. There you are. Alright then, guys. Well, I think this is tasting number 7, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's definitely our second last one, so we'll go with that for the measure. Jason's sitting grinning at me like a Cheshire cat. We love this guy. We love this guy. Tasting number 9. That's it. I don't think we're at number 9. I actually don't think we're at number 9, but yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this next beer that we're going to do is actually the last one in our tasting flight. It is called Binderstiff. It is an IPA coming in at 6.2% ABV. So let's take a look at it. So, as you can see then, this beer is poured with a little bit over a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head. Nice small bubbles, as you can see if I bring it up toward the camera. But in terms of colour, this one is leaning towards the kind of richer, sort of golden straw type colour. So yeah, definitely within the realms of possibility for an IPA. Of course, you can have these beers being a little bit more kind of rich and amber and coppery, but you can also have them being a little bit more kind of lighter and yellow like this one. So yeah, this beer is definitely nice and clear. You can see it does have a wee bit of a kind of natural haze to it, but I'm pretty sure this beer has been filtered, to be honest with you. But it looks really nice. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look really nice. So yeah, it's everything you would expect from an IPA, but one of the lighter ones in terms of the IPA spectrum, I guess we could say. So yeah, nothing else we need to say about the appearance of this one. let's have a look at the aroma then and see how we go. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Now, once again, when we think about some of the APAs that we've had, the IPAs, session IPAs, this is kind of similar. So straight away I get the impression of this beer being nice and big and oily for sure. So yeah, it's quite oily, it's quite zesty. I think it works. Yeah, it's got a little bit of the breadiness and things in there. Typical German take on an IPA, to be honest with you. But I really think this one, on the fruity side of things, it leans towards the zesty side of the spectrum. Bit grassy, bit floral. I like it. I do like this. So let's break it down. Backbone of the beer, Jacob's cream cracker once again. Few little bit of woody notes. On top of that, wee bit of a kind of light bread crusty sort of thing. Definitely some nice white bready notes. The more that you smell of it, you start to get more of these sweet McVitie's digestive biscuity characters. It's certainly not the heaviest IPA that I've had in terms of its breadiness, but you still get a little bit of that smooth German bready malty backbone to it. Yeah, this is nice. So yeah, as I say, bit of bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, wee bit of a woody undertone, some kind of brown bread. It leans towards a more white bready character though, and on top of that there is just a little bit of a biscuity note. This one's not really strong and caramelly, and it's 6.2%. If we think about this just in the German context, if you compare this to the other German beers, this is actually fairly high in terms of alcohol for a sessionable, like a regular drinking beer in Germany, because most German beers are like between 4.5 and 5.5%, so you have to bear that in mind. Yeah. On the fruity side of things then, yeah, I mean, I get a little bit of gooseberry, I get quite a big lemony zesty sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if this is New Zealand hop actually. There's a bit, it smells to me a little bit like Nelson Sauvin or Hallertau Blanc. It's got this gooseberry, white, green, grapey kind of thing. Nelson Sauvin's like the classic New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid, but of course these days in Germany you have the Hallertau Blanc, about 11% alpha acid, and it's very, very similar. It's the green component that's different. We'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, gooseberry, a little bit of a kind of limey note to it. I do get a wee bit of a limey zesty note. And yeah, otherwise you've got a little bit of this kind of nice sultana peary ester to it. In terms of the green component of the beer, a wee bit of earthiness, nice, really bright floral aromaticity. So this beer does have quite a little bit of early edition hopping, I think, and also that big zesty green component. I like how this goes together, so it gets a thumbs up from me in this regard. This is really, really nice actually. The way that this beer goes about its business aroma-wise is quite nice. So yeah, let's taste this. This is the Binderstiff IPA, 6.2% ABV. I think this is going to be interesting. Slange, skull, cheers. Now, first impression of this one is that it's actually very nicely balanced. It's quite oily and quite thick, but at the same time, it's one of these. It's quite stereotypical. As I said, I always used to enjoy these German brewed IPAs because of the breadiness you get out of them. This one definitely has that bready backbone. It's got a wee bit of oiliness to it, both from the sweet kind of malty side of things and also the fruits. I like this, absolutely. Yeah, the way that this goes together is really, really nice. So yeah, middle of your palate then. Backbone of the beer, straight up white bread crust. On top of that, soft white bread. You do get a little touch of a kind of brown bready note to it. I'm saying this quite a lot tonight because I'm pretty sure many of these beers will be using a very similar malt base. But yeah, on top of that, there's a wee bit, I do get a little bit of an oily kind of Werther's Original type thing, and that's in the centre of your palate, but as you move further out from that, you get a bit more of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, this is quite a bready Werther's Original type kind of malt base that you get out of this beer, but again, I like it. I think it works. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, a little bit of earthiness there, but quite mild. As you move further forward, it's a little bit herbal, but very, very quickly on the sides of the palate with this beer, you do get a nice kind of bright floral aromaticity. It's got a bit of depth to it, which indicates early addition hopping. So remember, West Coast IPAs use early addition hopping and late and dry hopping, whereas New England IPAs only tend to use late and dry hopping. So early addition hopping gives you a lot of the bitterness, late addition hopping gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and then dry hopping is all about flavour and aroma. This one I think is a bit more of a kind of old school West Coast IPA. Stylistically it is definitely West Coast, so it's got a wee bit of that early addition hopping, which is quite nice. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy and a wee bit zesty, and again I find the green component of this beer to be quite oily. So yeah, let's look at the fruity side of things. So yeah, front third of your palate, wee bit of a bready base, but on top of that, nice oily notes. So toward the back of the toward the back of that front third of your palate, again it's quite a sort of sultana-y, dry white green grapey note. As you move further forward it becomes a little bit more, you do get a little bit of apricot underneath, but you start to get a bit of an oily pear. And then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, I think it starts to get a little bit gooseberry-like, a little bit kind of almost oily and limey. Yeah, maybe a little bit like Motueka or Equinaut or something like that in this one. This is quite a limey. It really is quite a limey, gooseberry leaning IPA for me, this one, which is really interesting. But yeah, the way that this goes about its business is very, very nice. Yeah, quite an old school West Coast IPA, this one, but with the obvious German malt character. Don't think there's anything else we need to say about the flavour of this one. So yeah, on the mouthfeel then, top end to mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, definitely oily and slick. Yeah, IBUs, I don't find this overly bitter. I think this is maybe about 40 or 50 IBUs. Malt base is kind of smooth, wee bit of sweetness to it, wee bit oily, and you've got that nice big oily fruity character. So yeah, this is nice. Our second last beer then here at Vagabund, the Binderstiff IPA, 6.2%. Pretty damn solid. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I'll catch you guys in just a second. Alright guys, so yeah, this is Michael who was looking after me tonight. Hello. So yeah, I had a really good time here. And yeah, Michael taught me all about the beers, put up with all my awkwardness, so thank you for putting up with all of that tonight. It was good. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about Vagabund and here and the Kessel House?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great having James here, trying all the beers. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, everyone who watches James's channel is always welcome here. And yeah, come by and try some beer. We're on Antwerpener Straße in Berlin, not far from the Seestraße U-Bahn station, and we've also got the bigger place not far away either. It's more taps, and it's a nice place to visit. So yeah, everyone's always welcome, and it'd be great to see people here.
Yeah, no, come and visit it. It's a really nice chill bar, guys. I had a really good time. We just enjoyed the beer, chatty chit. It was great.
When did you arrive? It was about 7 hours ago, wasn't it? Still drinking.
Something like that, yeah. This is how it happens, guys. You just go somewhere and it just goes out of control. But yeah, big thank you to you, Michael, for making this video.
Thank you, James.
For making this video good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll film a little outro, give you my final thoughts and things. But yeah, I had a good time here. So just now, guys, come and meet Michael either at Kessel House.
Come and see me.
Yeah, come visit him at Kessel House or on Antwerper Straße. So yeah, you'll enjoy it. Right, guys, so time for our final tasting then at Vagabund Brauerei. As I said, I was only planning to do like 5, but we kept just getting handed stuff. Michael kept giving us things, being like, oh, this beer is really experimental, you need to try this. I've not regretted it at all. They've all been really nice beers. But yeah, apparently now we are going to try one of the strongest and most experimental ones that they do. Why not? So yeah, this beer is called Three's a Party. There you can see the nice bottle there. There is your Vagabund Brauerei symbol. So yeah, this one comes in 8.5% ABV, and it's a blend between a Belgian Abbey triple and an IPA. So apparently it uses the Belgian triple yeast, but then it's hopped like a kind of American IPA. What's not to like there? So let's have a wee look at this. So when we've poured this one, you can see when it came out, it's poured with quite a bumpy, I would say, kind of cream coloured head. That's faded away to just be a little bit of a thin kind of fluffy layer, to be honest with you. It's a little bit kind of all over the place. But yeah, you can see this has got a very nice, rich, golden colour to it. You can see it's got a bit of the natural kind of haze. There's one or two big bubbles on the bottom of the glass and not really a lot of visible carbonation. Now, the thing you need to remember about the triple style, these beers tend to be very strong because what they do in the brewing process is add candy sugar to them. This is the thing they do with blondes, doubles, triples, quadruples. That's the way they get the alcohol high, but they keep the mouthfeel quite low and crisp. So you'll always find with these beers, they do feel really quite carbonated in some way. But yeah, this one certainly looks the part. I would say it's actually one of the more kind of honey, caramelly coloured triples that I've seen in a wee while, but I don't know if that's just the light in here, because to be fair, it is quite dark. I'm not sure. I'm looking at the viewfinder on the camera, and it looks pretty light there, but it's a nice looking beer, and it's certainly within the realms of possibility of what you would expect of a triple, nonetheless. So yeah, looks the part. Let's take a look at the aroma and see how we go. Oh, right. That's interesting. All the beers have been interesting though, repeating myself. So this one, the malt base really is very triple-like, and you get the yeastiness in there too, but it really is quite grassy and kind of citrusy leaning. So it has, you can see where the IPA side of things is coming from. It's actually, the hoppy side of this beer is very similar to the Binderstiff that we tried in the last review. It's really got that kind of big limey, zesty note to it. But yeah, the triple note's kind of sitting there underneath. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But let's focus on the malty side of the beer first. I always like doing it this way. So at the backbone of the beer for me, you have this sort of like caramel wafery sort of thing. I'm not sure how good a tasting reference that is for Germans, but in Scotland you have this thing, a Tunnock's tea cake. It's got a little bit of that. So if you think about the cone, if you think about the kind of the material that an ice cream cone is made of, you put a little bit of caramel sauce on it. That's what you're getting out of this one. Jason's sitting laughing. Is it accurate though?
That's so specific. Yeah,
yes, there we go. It's accurate. It works. But yeah. You get that kind of, you get that sort of wafery sort of thing, the wee bit of the caramel sauce. It's got a wee bit of a crackery sort of thing to it as well. But the caramel that you get out of this is very light and very sweet. They've got an interesting phone ring here as well. It's good. So yeah, caramel wafer, sweet caramel. It's actually quite honey-like. I've always found that honey feels a little bit lighter. But yeah, the more that you smell of it, you get a proper oily big caramel out of this beer. I do actually get a little bit of a slightly nutty thing out of this one. There's a very light nutty note to it, maybe a very little bit of woody character. But yeah, this is the thing. It's the candy sugars that go into this beer that give you that slightly more honey, biscuity kind of thing, that caramel sauce wafery biscuit type note. But yeah, it's a really nice smelling triple. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. The more that you smell of this beer, the more the triple side of it comes out. So you do get a wee touch of that kind of slightly clovey spice note to it. You can smell that big doughy Belgian yeast as well. Remember, Belgian beer is very yeast centric. So yeah, a little bit of banana to it. Yeah, like dry banana, some apricot in there. You have to remember this is coming from the yeast, it's not from the hops. But yeah, the malty yeasty side of this beer is really nice. Everything you would want from the style. So let's look at the hoppy side of it. And you have to remember too, Belgian beers are not the most hop forward, but this one is obviously because it's supposed to be a hybrid. So not much earthiness for me. You get quite a bright floral aromaticity to it. I wouldn't describe it as spicy, but again, this one feels quite fresh. you still get a little bit of that kind of, you know, pellety sort of thing. You can smell the hop pellets out of this beer. So I think it's pretty fresh. But Michael did tell me this is one they've been doing for quite a while. I'm not 100% sure how fresh exactly this bottle is, but you still get a little bit of this kind of pellety note out of it. But round the kind of front of the nose, it's a wee bit more oily. The grassy character you get out of this one is quite oily. But on the fruity side of things, I get quite a bit of lime out of it. There's a wee bit of gooseberry. There's also a wee bit of, you know, you've got these typical things, that oily pear, that sultana, all of these things that are kind of very attributable, can we say, to a Belgian triple. But yeah, apricot, banana, all of this. It looks really nice, or it smells really nice, I should say. But yeah, Michael's just given me a thing. It says bottled 9 months ago. So you know, you want, you know, triples, you can age these really nicely. So this will be in pretty good condition now. I'm surprised at how kind of, usually you get a lot more carbonation if it's been aged for 9 months. You'd get a lot more carbonation. So this one's been fairly well conditioned. So that's another wee interesting side point, because when you open these Belgian beers, sometimes they fucking explode on you, and it's not nice. But yeah, anyway, let's taste this one then and see how we go. This is this. So yeah, Three's a Party, a triple IPA hybrid, 8.5% ABV, our final beer. Slange, skull, cheers. Massive shout out to Michael, who's put up with my awkwardness all night, and big shout outs to Jason and Mika as well. So yeah, Slange, skull, cheers. That's really interesting. They're all interesting, I keep saying that. But yeah, I think I've got a feeling this is the very first German brewed triple that I've ever had. And it gives you everything you'd want from the style, but it just shows you that German smoothness. And I feel, you know, I repeat this in so many videos that I have a German beer. The trait, the kind of benchmark of German beer is that smoothness and that drinkability. You would drink this and you'd never guess that it's an 8.5%er. You get the same with Doppelbock. You know, 8.5% isn't out with the realms of possibility for a Doppelbock. So yeah, backbone of the beer, you get that. It's like the caramel wafery sort of thing I talked about earlier, but it's even smoother. You get a bit of bread crust to it, but again, it's smoother. Soft white bread, not really a brown bready note to this one, and on top of that you get this layer of like honey butterscotch. But when you go further into the aftertaste, you get a wee bit of a, you can feel the yeast coming out of this one, particularly on the back third of your palate. You get more of the yeasty notes, so you get a teeny little bit of banana, apricot-y kind of thing, and that's quite a dry fruity character. In the dead centre of the palate, it's a wee touch caramelly, McVitie's digestive biscuity. Yeah, it's nice, but as I say, the thing that really lingers into the aftertaste with this is that light sort of wafery honey kind of quality. Yeah, it's nice. What I would say is, the thing is, you have to remember, when this is bottled 9 months ago, quite a bit of the hoppy character is going to drop out of this. The longer you leave like an IPA or any heavily hopped beer in the bottle, the hoppy character drops out, so the IBU is automatically going to drop, and the pungent green component you get is going to go from being like piney and resinous to being a little bit more kind of smooth and herbal. If that makes sense. So you're getting a wee bit, on the hoppy side of things, you get a wee bit of the earthiness, and again it's smooth, but it's a little bit herbal, and you do just get like, you get a bright floral aromaticity to it, but it's definitely, I would bet you anything it's not as pungent as it was when it was first bottled. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a wee bit lighter and grassy, and I would say that grassy side of the beer is quite oily. Overall, the green component of this beer is pretty oily. Yeah, let's focus on the front third of the palate then. So, the fruity side of things. There's something oddly familiar about this hop, but we've had so many beers that I can't quite place it. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate though, soft bread again, there's a wee bit of an oily kind of gooseberry sort of thing to it. At the back of the front third of your palate, it's a wee bit oily and peary. A bit of sultana, absolutely. Yeah, sultana, apricot-y, peary. As you move further forward, a wee bit gooseberry-like. yeah, it's hard to place exactly what kind of hops have been used in this one, but it gives you the more oily, dry fruity notes that you would expect of a Belgian triple. Nothing unusual about this beer for me, but I do get a wee bit of lime just on the very front tip of your tongue. You get a wee bit more lime, so Motueka from New Zealand or Equinox could be a good shout for this one too. But yeah, I like this. I do like it once again. All the beers that we've had from Vagabund have been impressive. Yeah, let's round off with the mouthfeel. So yeah, for me, it's actually quite big and oily in terms of a triple. It feels heavier than some of the Belgian brewed ones. So top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied, smooth carbonation, quite oily, definitely not as crisp and carbonated as you'll get from some of the Belgian examples. But yeah, the hoppy side of things for me, IBUs, I think this is about 20 IBUs at most. The malt and yeasty side of this beer, smooth breadiness, as we said, a bit of sweetness and a bit of, you know, biscuity, grainy character to the sweetness too. Then a nice big oily, fruity note. And for me, the fruity side of this beer is a little bit dry, but you also get a wee bit of that citrusy zestiness. So yeah, this is a nice beer actually. It's one that Michael was very adamant that I tried, and he's not let me down. So yeah, I like this. So yeah, this one was the Three's Party 8.5% triple IPA hybrid, our last beer here at Vagabund. So yeah, we'll go outside, I'll give you my final thoughts here, talk about the prices and stuff like that, and that'll be us for this video. So there we go, our last beer tasting here at Vagabund in Wedding in the northwest of central Berlin. Slange just now. Alright guys, so yeah, just time to round up here at Vagabund Brauerei on Antwerpenstrasse in Wedding in Berlin. So yeah, this was really nice actually. So we ended up trying, I think, about 8 beers. The flight that we had was €13, so that translates to roughly, yeah, £11 sterling, maybe $15 American, 130 Swedish kroner for those of you watching in different places. Yeah, quality of the beers was really nice. I think the most interesting one, of course, was the Stahl Zexig, just because it was so unusual, but all of the beers were really nice quality. You know, had a really good time here. Michael put up with all my annoying stuff, which was really cool. Genuinely, honestly, really nice time here at Vagabund Brauerei. So come and check it out. I didn't realise that the Kesselhaus was their kind of bigger tap room, but here they have 5 of their own taps and then 1 guest, but over at the other one they have, I think, 16 taps in total, so more of their own stuff and more guest things too. So I guess it's kind of up to you which venue you want to pick. Maybe the next time I come to Berlin we will go and check out the one at Kesselhaus. But yeah, I came to this one because this one was really nicely rated on Rate Beer. But yeah, definitely come and check out Vagabund on Antwerpenstrasse in Berlin. So yeah, really nice time here, and again, big shout outs to Michael. Really great service today. So catch you guys on the next one. Check out my social media, check out Vagabund Brauerei's social media, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Slange, skull, cheers.